You know, you guys, as we've slowly worked our way into this new 2023 NBA season, regardless of how the landscape looks right now, the Milwaukee Bucks definitely came into this year with a very interesting situation. Because as they were set to go at this campaign without their second best player in Khris Middleton, you know, the same guy that most people were saying if he were healthy in the 2022 playoffs, the Milwaukee Bucks would have at the very least been making their second straight NBA Finals appearance. Well, yeah, while it was likely he was going to be out for the first 2 or so months of this season, many were curious if Milwaukee was going to be able to consistently hold their own while waiting for him to return. And well, if you haven't really been paying attention to Milwaukee from the jump, I think that I can confidently speak for everyone when I say they held up just fine. But also, newsflash for any of you in case you missed it, but yes, Khris Middleton is finally back. And even though, yes, it's been a very small sample size since his return, the rest of the league probably isn't too thrilled with what the Bucks have actually been showing us, so let's get into it. One sec though, guys, if you haven't yet, don't forget to drop a like on the video if you enjoy, and subscribe to never miss another NBA video. But speaking of the NBA, with your team hopefully being in a winning position this year, it's about time you take a win of your own with today's sponsor in MyBookie. MyBookie has the biggest online selection of odds and contests for all of your sports betting needs, anytime, anywhere. Bet on the NBA, the NCAA, or any major sport you can think of to play for a share at some major cash prizes. And the best part is if you sign up today using the code HoopsDigest, you can claim a 10% cash bonus on deposits up to $2,000. Once again, that is code HoopsDigest to claim your brand new deposit bonus designed to get your money in and out as quickly as possible. It's time to experience sports in a whole new light and make this season a winning one. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere with MyBookie. Now, to get back on topic with the Milwaukee Bucks, again, it should not come as a surprise to many as to how these guys have been able to consistently coast to the top of the league without their second best player. Because I mean, well, aside from Giannis yet again being on pace to put up one of the best seasons we've seen from him in his entire career, there's also Jrue Holiday, who has consistently shown us he is more than capable of being a number 2 option, and he has done exactly that this season. And even with a very surprising leap in play from the big man Brook Lopez, who if you thought his offensive production wasn't enough in the past, he's also currently the front runner to win the 2023 Defensive Player of the Year award. Yeah, I think that we can confidently say the Bucks laid the groundwork pretty well while waiting for Khris to return. And while slowly adding Middleton back into the mix of things, while it's fairly obvious to almost anyone that watches basketball that this will clearly help Milwaukee in numerous different areas, I still don't think people fully understand that if all goes well with his return, it could push this team to a level of production that we've never seen from them. Because even though through the first fair amount of games this season without Khris Middleton, while you would assume the offense was holding up relatively fine, hence the record, this was not the case. In fact, surprisingly enough, Milwaukee had a below average offensive production when comparing to the rest of the league. But now, with holding the team afloat over this struggling span, with the Bucks finally being able to add not just the spot-up shooting ability of Khris, which is definitely top tier when you take a look at the numbers, but also the ISO offensive creation that he brings to the table on a game-to-game basis, is something that I'm willing to bet Giannis has been waiting for literally months on end. And while relatively speaking about most NBA fans, it is very nice to see that Khris Middleton is starting to finally get the credit and recognition that he deserves, but how much he actually improves this offense when he's out on the court is still not realized to the extent that the numbers show us. In fact, when you're talking about what Milwaukee's been missing this year, it might not come as a surprise to some of you when I tell you that the Bucks have been one of, if not the worst isolation teams in all of basketball. Now sure, while this is not an over-exaggeration, I'm also pretty confident that it will undoubtedly improve as the months go on, considering this is one of the biggest components as to why they've been so successful in years past. But even with them being so atrocious in one of their most needed areas on the offensive side of the ball, it has on the other hand contributed to what might be best for them in the long run, and as simple as it sounds, it's them playing the best team basketball that we've seen from them with Giannis specifically in a very long time. Because even though when you do look at with the major numbers of Giannis and Jrue, while it might not seem like their ISO possessions are lacking, believe me, they definitely are when you dive just a little bit deeper. But how they've still both been able to play at an arguable career best is by being involved in a more freely moving offense that their coaching staff has preached they transition to. Because I mean, well, when you look at how they've been able to consistently operate this season, it's actually done them a pretty solid favor. Now, we all definitely know, if you have watched this team even in the slightest in the past, that even with how bad they've been in ISO situations this year, they will always continue to try to use it. But with their rapid new use of both off-ball movement and even off-ball screens, it's not only opened up more opportunities in the paint, but also from the perimeter. And even though statistically speaking, when you're looking at the numbers right now, the Bucks deep ball isn't as on as much as it's been in the past, this also doesn't mean that we're not seeing breakthroughs in this element of their offense, specifically when you're looking at guys like Jevon Carter, Grayson Allen, and even Brook Lopez. And while all Bucks fans are obviously hoping these guys stay at the rate they're at, they're also hoping some of their sharpshooters and guys like Connaughton, Khris Middleton, and even Joe Ingles will one day this season return to the typical efficiency rates they shoot from deep as well. I mean, I don't think that this will come back to haunt me, but with how this offense has been looking this year, and when their guys eventually get into their groove, there's no reason to think Milwaukee won't be a top 10 shooting team from deep as the season ends. But if you were still wondering how this team is somewhat still sitting at the top of the league, if they were to hang their hat on anything they've been doing so far this year, it would undoubtedly be their defense. And while their borderline top defensive rating in the entire league this far into the season would easily be enough to solidify this point, it still doesn't tell you the full story as to what they're actually doing that's so different. Because for anyone that might not have known this, the Bucks' defensive strategy of years past, whether they intended it to be this way or not, was simply to force their opponents to beat them from deep, while more so putting an emphasis on locking down the interior. And if you don't believe me on that, just take a quick look at 2022's defensive statistics, and I think you'll believe me pretty quickly. Nonetheless though, while this year, yes, they're clearly still giving up a decent amount of attempts from deep when you compare them to the rest of the league, but it is down substantially from what we've seen out of Milwaukee in the past. And easily the best part about all of this is that while Milwaukee is forcing their opponents to look more inside to score, they are still locking down the interior at the dominant rate that they were prior. Because with Milwaukee essentially trying to use Brook Lopez as a second defensive anchor in the paint right along Giannis Antetokounmpo, it not only gives the three remaining players on the court at all times an essential sole focus to try to guard the perimeter and force them down low, but also with both Giannis and Brook's ridiculous size and wingspan being able to easily contest threes whenever they see one going up, it's essentially given this defense a best of both worlds scenario. And if they're able to keep up the ridiculous production that we've seen from them so far this season into the 2023 playoffs, I don't know you guys, I will just say that while most of their opponents this season have yet to be able to crack the code of their defensive scheming, and with their offensive production only bound to continue improving, this seems like a very solid formula that might have them hoisting the Larry O'Brien once again at the end of the season. But of course, as with everything else we discuss here on the channel, we'll just have to wait and see. Nonetheless though, you guys, with everything we've discussed so far regarding the Milwaukee Bucks, I'm also extremely curious to hear what you have to think about their situation. So please be sure to let me know in the comments what has been the most surprising part to you out of the very impressive start for the Bucks this season, and also, if you had to guess, what will be their record going into the postseason and how far do you actually see them making it. But again, you guys, if you haven't yet, don't forget to go down below and leave a like on the video if you enjoyed, and of course, subscribe while you're down there to never miss another NBA video. But also, I just wanted to say thank you so much to each and every one of you out there for watching. I appreciate you all more than anything, you all know this, and I will see you guys in the next video.